Other members? Yeah, the Honourable Shane Mallard.
Stay nice.
Getting all my reports out of the way. I can take next week off. Time is already on. Quick, Beverly. Yeah. Mr. Deputy President, I'm pleased to rise today and support this report on energy from waste technology. I do so noting that the actual title of the report is now a little misleading because the House expanded the terms of reference inquiry to look at much more than just energy from waste. Matters relating to the waste disposal industry in New South Wales, with a particular reference to energy from waste technology, and in particular the Parliament asked us to look at the current provision of waste disposal and recycling, the impact of waste levies, and the capacity to address the ongoing disposal needs for commercial, industrial, household and hazardous waste, to look at the role of energy from waste technology in addressing waste disposal needs and the resulting impact on the future of the recycling industry, to look at the current regulatory standards, and to look at the transport of all classifications of waste and recycled materials out of New South Wales and their consequences, to look at the prevalence and scale of illegal dumping across New South Wales and the actions of the New South Wales Environmental Protection Authority to address it, and the sustainability and the impacts of the current waste and landfill regime on human and environmental health. Quite a comprehensive, broad set of reviews for waste. The terms of reference were self-referred to the committee by the committee on the 6th of April. The terms of reference were extended through the House on the 10th of August 2017. This is a very important and timely inquiry as New South Wales struggles to deal with the record levels of waste created through population growth, but also through economic boom that's occurring in this state, creating a lot of building waste, commercial waste, as well as residential waste. Waste disposal is a very serious issue in New South Wales. In 2014-15, the New South Wales generated nearly 19 million tonnes of waste, and it is the second highest per capita producer of waste in the world. And I think it's a really astounding figure. The second highest per capita producer of waste in the world. Therefore, it is essential that waste management services and the infrastructure are strategically planned and aligned and delivered appropriately. The inquiry demonstrated that this is not happening satisfactorily. The committee has made a number of recommendations to overcome this issue, including that the New South Wales Government hypothecate a greater percentage of waste levy funds to local councils and the waste industry to support the provision of additional waste services, initiatives and the much-needed infrastructure. Therefore, the committee recommended that the New South Wales Government identify a government body responsible for leading waste infrastructure planning. I think that's really important because we found that there was no one government body responsible for leading waste infrastructure planning from the planning and zoning through to the provision of the services across the state. The committee appreciates the challenges involved in regulating the waste industry. While it is apparent that most waste operators comply with the regulatory system, a small proportion of bad apples, bad industry participants appear insistent on operating outside the law. There was a great deal of debate during the inquiry about using energy from waste technologies. Over the years, New South Wales has become dependent on landfill, and it's time to look at other options for waste disposal. Energy from waste is a means of energy recovery and not solely waste disposal. The waste hierarchy that the state adopts dictates that it's preferable to recover energy from a residual material rather than disposing of it as is current practice. So I just want to emphasise the energy from waste is a process of dealing with the residual material left after all the recycling material has been extracted and recycled. It's a small component left over from that process. And as the Honourable Penny Sharp referred to, sadly, there's a whole range of those sort of operations overseas, but some of them, as we know, in Mexico, parts of Europe, are just taking all the waste, not including recyclables, and burning it to produce the electricity. Mexico City to power the trams. It's a very hungry source of consumption if they go down that path. That's not the proposal from New South Wales. When using best practice technologies, energy from waste produces less harmful emissions than landfill and can assist in reaching renewable energy goals and can be viable alternatives to landfill. While the committee found that energy from waste is legitimate in the waste hierarchy, there are still legitimate concerns surrounding energy from waste technology and whether it's environmentally sound, whether these technologies are more efficient than landfill, and whether these technologies are undermining resource recovery and recycling. On the other hand, other stakeholders, including the EPA, waste management organisations and some local councils, including the City of Sydney, advocated the use of energy from waste in the hierarchy of extracting waste in the system. Let me turn to the application for energy from waste at Eastern Creek. The inquiry examined the proposal by the Next Generation to build an energy from waste facility at Eastern Creek. Many of the issues raised by inquiry participants in relation to the proposed facility included the proponents' social licence to operate, that is, the support from their community, the siting of the project, the lack of reference facilities and the proposed feedstock for the project. The committee also considered issues with regard to emission standards and monitoring and considers whether the proponent is a fit and proper person to operate an energy from waste facility. Next Generation had applied to the Department of Planning and Environment to build a large-scale energy from waste facility in Eastern Creek. The site currently houses the Genesis Zero Waste Recycling Facility and a material processing centre for construction and demolition waste, and the commercial industrial waste has waste disposal facilities landfill capacity. The proponent proposed that the facility would source feedstock from the residual chute waste at the Genesis facility and would accept suitable and eligible waste fuels from other authorised third parties. The fuel or feedstock will be mixed before the feed hopper pushes it into the continually moving furnace and it will be combusted. During the duration of the inquiry, members made numerous site visits, including one day of hearings at Rooty Hill. They were, Mr Deputy President, very passionate hearings at Rooty Hill. This hearing allowed for residents of Western Sydney to express their concerns regarding proposed energy from waste incinerator and the impact of the air quality and pollution. The committee received hundreds of passionate submissions from residents of Western Sydney. The committee also noted the concerns of the stakeholders that raised issues associated with the topographic structure of the Sydney Basin and the challenges of trapped air pollution within it. The committee found that the Next Generation proposal could add substantially to the challenges of managing air pollution across Sydney, particularly Western Sydney, and as such, the committee, in recommendation 20 of its report, recommended, and I quote, that subject to the current assessment process being conducted by the Department of Planning and Environment, the New South Wales Government not approve the energy from waste facility proposal by the Next Generation at Eastern Creek. After being assessed by the Independent Planning Commission, the proposal at Eastern Creek was rejected in July, and I think the community and the committee welcomed that. The Commission cited uncertainty over the project's human health risks and the impact on air and water quality, and said the project was not in the public interest and refused consent. During the inquiry, there was significant emphasis upon the role of the Environmental Protection Authority in regulating the waste industry and whether it is doing so effectively. Stakeholders pointed to the increase in illegal dumping, including the insidious crime of dumping contaminated waste such as asbestos, the growing volume of New South Wales waste being transported to Queensland. Industry stakeholders were not satisfied and called on the New South Wales Government to investigate options to restructure the New South Wales EPA and undertake an independent review of the New South Wales EPA's performance of its various functions. It's not the first inquiry to support that. The report set out in Recommendation 17 that the New South Wales EPA set out the expected community engagement practices and outcomes. A strong regulatory regime is undoubtedly dependent on a clear and consistent approach to the enforcement of sanctions, particularly when pursuing prosecutions. The committee also found that amongst stakeholders there is a perception that the New South Wales EPA is not effectively performing its regulatory role in relation to the waste industry. These concerns were reflected in recommendations 21, 22, 23. There was a proposal to restructure the New South Wales EPA. The committee did not receive sufficient evidence to recommend a restructure. However, it has been recommended that the New South Wales Government investigate options to restructure the EPA so it can improve its performance. I'll now turn to the future of waste management in New South Wales. The committee heard concerns about the shortfall in waste infrastructure, including the need for greater strategic planning in this area, including support for an infrastructure plan and a lead agency to oversee its implementation. The committee also found there was an urgent need to identify and zone land for waste facilities, and we look perhaps to the Greater City Planning Commission to pick up some of this idea, because it transcends, it goes across council areas. It's the Greater Sydney. Evidence presented during the inquiry, particularly from local councils, suggested that New South Wales currently has insufficient waste infrastructure to meet its demand. Inquiry participants expressed significant concern that New South Wales is not adequately equipped to manage increasing amounts of waste into the future. It is generally understood that by state and local government that the waste and resource recovery industry in New South Wales is facing the challenge of insufficient infrastructure, from processing plants to transfer stations to organics and recycling facilities being available to treat not just the existing waste but the potential growth in waste generation in the short-term future. Therefore, the following recommendation was made that the New South Wales Government establish an expert advisory body on energy from waste chaired by Chief Scientists to examine and report on energy from waste regulatory framework to create certainty for the market, community and the community. That the further recommendation 31, the New South Wales Government identify a single government body, either existing department or an agency or a newly created body responsible for leading waste management infrastructure, waste planning in New South Wales. In conclusion, Mr Deputy President, waste management is a very serious challenge for this state. With a rapidly expanding population and a growing economy, it's imperative that the government takes a leading role in strategically planning the management of waste going forward. We cannot rely upon the ad hoc processes that are in place at the moment. The community industry is looking for certainty when it comes to waste management policy. Energy from waste is a means of energy recovery and not waste disposal. During the inquiry, we heard heartfelt submissions from residents of Western
Member's time
Sydney.
expires.
Thank you, Mr.
Singley. Yeah, the Deputy